I'm Susan Parker, and I'm a founding member of the homeless outreach and advocacy organization called From Roots to Wings Incorporated. We will be celebrating our second anniversary in November. With me today is Ron Pagano, who is our founder, president, and CEO. Hi, Ron, how are you?
Great, Susan. How are you today?
I'm doing great too.
Good.
So maybe you could share a little bit about how From Roots to Wings came to be.
Sure. Actually, a friend of mine, Jason Kramer, and I were sitting around in his garage one night back in October of 2014, almost 2 years ago. And we were talking about trying to do something for the homeless in our community. Although there were a lot of programs, we felt like, well, we really wanted to do something more. And the plan was to do it just for prior to Christmas time. So what we did was I said, I'll go home and I'll put together a Facebook page and we'll see what happens. Well, within a day we had over 60 people respond, and they wanted to donate, see what we needed. They wanted to donate items, they wanted to donate clothing, and they wanted to donate food and whatever we needed. And from there, it started growing. So now that we had this commitment from people, we had to come up with a plan on how to distribute this stuff. So we sat down and we figured out that what we could both do would be to go out on a Saturday morning and go out to places in the community where the homeless hang out, basically on street corners, in parking lots, in doorways in some cases. And then we found out later on that they're even in camps in the woods around town. So we started on a Saturday morning in November and went out and distributed clothing our first week. And I think we found about 10 homeless folks that weekend. But we did distribute some coats and sweaters. And then after about 2 weeks of doing that, we said, wouldn't it be great if we could add some food to that? So again, I went to the Facebook page, which was now up over a couple of hundred people that were interested in helping. And I put on there that we're looking to do food, hot meal, if anybody would be interested in helping us out with that. So right away I got some folks that were interested in doing stews or casseroles or something hearty for us to distribute. And that's what we started doing. We started having a friend of ours who is actually on our board described us as 4 friends in a crock pot when we first started out, because that's really what we were. We were just 4 friends who decided, or multiple friends actually, decided to go out and do something. So we started doing meals as well as the clothing, and they loved it. They loved it. And each week we started seeing more and more people, because we would ask people, as you know, the homeless folks, as we saw them, where else do you guys hang out? Where else can we find folks that need us? So we started going around to different places, and we have over the course of 2 years set up a distribution route that has changed sometimes because of the change in circumstances for the homeless folks. But and I usually refer to them as our homeless friends, not folks. I usually refer to them as our friends, because over 2 years period, they've become our friends.
So have you added anything to the mix over the years? Your crock pot meal,
Yeah.
your clothing, aren't there some more things that homeless people might need?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that was a learning experience for all of us, I think. As we got to know these friends of ours more and more, we realized that that they needed more things. And we asked them, we said, what do you need? And this was now after Christmas that year, Christmas of December of 2014. And we didn't expect it to go beyond that. But my thought was, well, as long as folks are going to help us out and continue to help us out, we'll do this as long as we can. And so generally, I'm the driver. We go out and I drive. And what we've added to the mix now is we do snack food. So things like granola bars, juice boxes for the kids, because we do have children, unfortunately, that are also homeless. We have fruit cups. We have Chef Boyardee little cans of pasta. we have lots of different snack foods that we also give out. And this way, that enables us to give them something that not only do they get a hot meal, but they have something that they can take with them during the day and use during the day when they get hungry.
Now, what makes From Roots to Wings really different from all the other groups that are here? How do you make sure that people really need what you're giving them?
Well, you know, we do have shelters in town, of course, and they've been around for years, and they do a good job. They have their place. The thing is that we have folks that are on the street that are either unable or unwilling to go to a shelter. You know, whatever their reason is, they're on the street, and they need help. And so we decided that that was going to be our niche. That was going to be who we helped out. And we are now handling on a regular basis anywhere between 30 and 50 people a week that need our services, that are not able to get services from other places.
So if they're on the street, how do they take care of things like hygiene and, you know, simple things we take for granted, toothbrushing, showers?
Right. That's a problem, certainly. And when you're living on the street, you're talking about 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, spring, summer, fall, winter. So you've got all the extremes of temperatures and weather, plus you've got also places where you're not always welcome. So you're constantly being moved on from places. So there is no established place in the county that these folks can go to and camp out or stay. So the way they handle that is they do the best they can. Some of the stores in town have been very, very helpful in terms of letting them use bathrooms. Some of them have allowed them to use ice. You know, like some of the 7-Eleven type stores, convenience stores have allowed them to take ice or take cups if they need it.
Does
that
Roots
type of
to
thing.
Wings give them any of the things they need, though? Do they have access to things like soap and toothpaste and toothbrushes and combs and things that we all take for granted?
Well, we started doing that as well, and toiletries is a big thing for them because, let's face it, if you're out, you know, I don't know if you've ever gone camping, but I used to camp with my sons when they were in Boy Scouts. And, you know, after a day or two being out in the woods, if you're not brushing your teeth, boy, it gets nasty. So imagine being on the street for a week or 2 weeks or a month without doing that. So we started providing things like toothbrushes, toothpaste, mouthwash, deodorant, shampoo, razor blades for guys who need to shave. Also, we found out, and I never thought about it. I guess I'm a guy, you know, and I never thought about feminine hygiene products. But we had some women who started asking us about that, so we started providing that. And we even have folks who contribute these things to us on a regular basis. They donate them to us.
So let's pretend I'm a new volunteer. What can I expect to happen when I show up on Saturday morning? What time do I show up and what takes place? Kind of what is the routine?
Right. Well, we have two types of volunteers that we need. I'm usually the driver, so it's easy for me to fill that spot because I've got the SUV and that's what we fill up and take with us. But we also need 2 ride-alongs, a minimum of 2 ride-along folks to help us out, distribute the products. We also need, on a weekly basis, somebody who will prepare a meal. So, you know, and again, I talk about a meal, but it's usually a crock pot meal of some type that's easy to dispense in a cup or a bowl. We've run the gamut in terms of meals. We've had people that have done very simple pasta salads, which are great, especially during the summer, to very elaborate meals where we've had somebody actually go to one of the local restaurants and pick up food and prepare it they had them prepare it for like 25, 30 people. So we've had lots of different variations on that. But so on a Saturday morning, we usually congregate about 9:30 over by our storage unit, which we have in town, which was donated to us for use because my garage at the time was starting to become a little overloaded. So we were very lucky to get somebody to donate a storage unit for us. Being a nonprofit, we're an all-volunteer organization, so we don't have any salaries, we don't have any income of that type. We do have some fundraisers once in a while, and we do accept cash donations.
Do you ever give people cash? The people that you serve?
You mean distribute cash
Right.
to our homeless friends? No, absolutely not. That's something I tell all our volunteers. When they show up on a Saturday morning, if it's the first time especially, I'll give them a 5-minute overview of what to expect and what we would like to see them do. Basically, I tell them, be yourself. You know, if you feel like talking to these folks, talk to them. If you feel like laughing with them, if you feel like praying with them, if you feel like hugging them, do that. These are not animals. They're not strangers in the sense that they don't know what that's like. They've been there. You know, these are not our not hobos and not bums. These are our cousins and our brothers and our sisters, our mothers, our children. So we have to treat them as such, and they deserve our love and they deserve our compassion, and that's what we're trying to give them. Aside from the tangible items, we're trying to give them a relationship, because it does take some time. And I explain this to our volunteers, it takes some time to get through that barrier, because they've heard these stories before. They've seen our organizations before come out and say they're going to help, and then they disappear, or they don't get the kind of help they need. So it takes a while to get through that barrier. But the other thing that I tell our volunteers is never, ever, in fact, I would prefer you came to this on a Saturday morning without any money in your pocket, because we never give out money. We do, of course, you know, there are some homeless friends of ours that have drug problems, have alcohol problems, addiction problems, and we certainly don't want to enable that any more than it already is. So we have to be careful with what we give out. And we have had folks ask for money every once in a while, and we say, well, what do you need the money for? And sometimes they'll tell us, and they'll say, you know, oh, I want to get some food. We have food right here. How much would you like? And let me fix it for you. So we try and show them there are alternatives.
Okay. What are there any other needs that you have for volunteers other than the Saturday morning routine?
Yeah, you know, I don't think there's a nonprofit anywhere that would ever turn down volunteers, because there's always something to do.
Of course, but what kinds of things would they need to do, and how can, say, youth groups get involved? Might not want them going out.
We try and work with lots of groups in the community. We've had very good success with the Salisbury-Wacomico Youth Civic Council, who have actually come out. I went and spoke to their organization one Saturday, and as a result of that, they got very excited about helping us out. And these are teenagers in high school in our area, and they were some of the most aware students at that age. I was never that way when I was a teenager, but they understood a lot of what I was talking about, and what they wanted to do was help in some way. So what we did was we asked them to come over to our storage unit and organize our clothing. We had probably 30 bags of clothing, big garbage bags of clothing that needed to be organized, separated, decide whether it's spring, summer, men's, women's, adults, children's, and then separate them, organize them into separate bins. So it made it a lot easier for our volunteers to be able to pull those out on a Saturday morning. And they came over and spent about 4 hours one Saturday and helped us do that.
And that's an ongoing need, I assume?
Yeah, in fact, we're getting ready now to work with them again to come out, and I just talked to somebody there this morning who they're very interested in coming out and helping us do that again, which we need at this point. We've also worked with students at Salisbury University. This past year I went out and spoke to one of the political communication classes, and as part of their class they were required to be involved in some community organization. Well, 4 of them signed up with us, and these guys were great. I wish they weren't graduating last year. I'd love to have them around again. But they helped us with, they did a video for our Facebook page. They did 2 fundraisers for us. They made T-shirts up with our logos on them for us. They were great, and they came out with us on a Saturday morning. One of them even made a meal one Saturday morning. So it was wonderful to have these guys with us. And I just spoke recently again to the same class this semester, and I'm hoping that we're going to be able to recruit some folks there.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So what are your greatest needs? If people wanted, maybe they don't want to go out with you, but maybe they want to do something, what kinds of things? How would they know what to donate? and what the greatest need is.
Well, we certainly always are looking for clothing, spring clothing, fall clothing, winter stuff. We're always looking for that, so that's always a need. But toiletries on an ongoing basis and snack foods on an ongoing basis are always needed.
And is there an easy way for people to get things to you? Is there a drop-off spot or some means to get to you whatever they're donating?
Sure. They can either contact us by telephone or on our Facebook page, From Roots to Wings, and we can set up a time for us to either come pick it up or they can drop it off. We also have an Amazon wish list that we set up that has, I think it's about 30 items on there that we go through on a regular basis. Toiletries, socks. Socks are probably the biggest item we go through, because when you're living on the street and your socks get wet, there's no way to dry them out. Nowhere are you able to dry those. So generally, if they get wet and you have to take them off, they're done with. And so they go through a lot of socks. So that's something that we're always looking for and always needing.
And how would one find this list?
Yeah, if you go to Amazon.com and go to their, they have a link for a wish lists, and you can actually click that on and type in our name, From Roots to Wings, and the wish list will come up, and you can click on that, pick out the items you'd like to send to us. The address is already set in there, so all you have to do is pay for it, and they ship it to us. And we've had a lot of folks do that, especially folks not in the area who can't drop things off but have found out about us and want to send us things.
So that's great. That sounds really easy.
It really is. It really makes it a lot easier.
So we've come to this point. What do you see in the future? You've been expanding for 2 years. What do you see in the future? What kinds of initiatives would you like to do as...
Well, our mission says basically two things. We have a two-pronged mission. One is to do the things that we're doing now, which is distribute food, clothing, and toiletries. Our other mission is to find a way to implement a housing program for these folks, because they really need it. And that's something we've been working with the city on recently. And the city has come across with a $75,000 in funding to set up a 10-apartment program for our homeless folks to start getting them off the street. And as it develops and as it grows successful, is shown to be successful, they're going to expand it. They just added 2 new positions or 2 new spots, so we now have 12 apartments that we have available. So it's starting to grow. The city is with us on this. They understand the need, and they want to get these folks off the street too.
That sounds great. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Susan.
Joining me now in the studio is Sharon Metz Walton, who was a member of the same high school class I graduated with, 1973, from Y High. Sharon was homeless for a period of time, and she's now in housing, and she's going to share some of her story with us. Hi, Sharon.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Glad to hear it. So tell me a little bit about what went wrong. How did you end up homeless?
Well, I think that I have never been a great money manager, so part of the responsibility is mine. I think it was a combination of things, some bad decisions, and some things that were beyond my control as well. I was a construction inspector most of my life, and my mother moved in with me in 2002. I became reliant on her to handle the finances. I would come home from work with my paycheck and hand it to her, and she took care of the finances. And she passed away in 2009.
I'm very sorry.
Thank you. And I think I didn't realize how dependent I had become on my mother until she passed. And I had no inkling as to what was going on with the money. She did leave me a modest inheritance that I was able to keep the wolf away from the door for about 2 years after her death, and then I became homeless.
So were you ever actually out on the streets? Did you ever sleep outside?
No, I was very fortunate that way. I was in a shelter most of the time that I was homeless.
And how was that?
I think I was taken care of very well in the shelters. The issue I had was they want you to become a Christian, and it's sort of a condition of being there. And I am a Christian, and I like to see people be Christians, but I don't think it should be a condition of receiving help.
Okay.
If you're a Muslim or a Jew or any other faith, you should get the same kind of services and help as anyone else.
Okay. So how did you overcome this being homeless? What did you do? How did you had some other obstacles, I believe, too, related to your health that kept you from working?
I have, not too long before my mother died, I had been laid off. So it was sort of a combination of things. And as a lifelong smoker, I now am coping with COPD, and I'm on oxygen most of the time, and I'm also diabetic. And as a construction inspector, my job is very physical. Mm-hmm. You have to climb up on a roof or climb down in a manhole. And it just got to the point with my health where I couldn't do that anymore. So I then applied for disability, which, as anyone who has ever applied for disability knows, it's a very lengthy and frustrating process. And it took 2 years from the time I applied until I was finally granted disability. I was denied twice.
And at what point did you become homeless in that 2-year period?
I got my disability while I was homeless.
Okay.
During the period of time that I was homeless. And then I applied for subsidized housing.
I see.
Which I eventually, that took about a year because you're on a waiting list. So that took about a year from the time I applied for the apartment to actually move into the apartment.
So you were homeless for about a year?
Right.
What did that feel like?
It made me feel very vulnerable. I had a few roommates along the way, and I was always feeling like I was at the whim of someone else's mood or someone else's whatever was going on with them that day. And I longed for the peace and serenity of having my own place to live. And it just makes you feel very vulnerable, very, very ashamed. People kind of think, well, you brought it on yourself. And I have to admit, before I became homeless myself, I was sort of looked down my nose at homeless people until I became one myself. Mm-hmm. And it sort of opened my eyes to a lot of things that I didn't know. I wasn't streetwise. I was very naive because I'd never had this experience before. And it was a real learning experience.
Yeah, so can you give me just briefly maybe a couple of words of advice for someone who might find themselves in that position?
Well, don't be afraid to ask for help. I have a hard time asking for help.
What made it so difficult to ask for help when you clearly needed it?
Well, I think I lack humility, for one thing. It's embarrassing to tell someone you don't have any food or any money or any...
At some point, does the hunger or the need outweigh the embarrassment?
Yes, at some point it does. And I was fortunate that I had friends that helped me out during this particular time.
Well, you know they're true friends, right?
Yes, absolutely. You do find out who your friends are at a time like that.
Well, we hope, all of us, that that doesn't happen to us. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for watching this segment of From Roots to Wings Incorporated. I'm your host, Susan Parker. If you'd like to learn more about From Roots to Wings, you can visit us on Facebook at From Roots to Wings Incorporated. You can also send us an email at fromrootstowings@gmail.com, or you can give us a call at 443-545-9453. We are grateful to PAC 14 for allowing us to present this information to you. Thank you.